Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever sat there staring at a frozen computer screen, just praying that a massive Excel macro doesn't crash your system right before a major deadline, well, you are definitely not alone. It's kind of one of the best kept secrets in the financial world. An astonishing amount of global business logic is precariously held together by legacy spreadsheets. So today, we're exploring the strategic value of moving those critical financial operations out of the fragile spreadsheet era and securely into the cloud.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to cover the limits of Excel macros, the AWS Well-Architected Framework, modernization with AWS tools, real-world performance benchmarks, a three-phase timeline, and finally, recommended next steps. Really, you can think of this as your calculated transformation blueprint for modernizing legacy IT and finance infrastructure.
All right, Section 1, the limits of Excel macros, the problem space.
To truly appreciate the solution here, we first have to map out the problem space. Visual Basic for applications, good old VBA macros. They are incredibly powerful for small-scale, localized tasks, right? But in complex financial environments, they severely struggle. On one side, legacy macros force manual scaling. You're literally adding workstations just to handle more data. You've got local hardware limits, terrifying single-point failures like a random server crash, and massive security risks. I mean, hard-coded database credentials sitting right there in the script? Yikes. But contrast that with the AWS Cloud environment. We're talking about elastic, dynamic scaling but adjusts totally automatically. You get multi-AZ or multiple availability zone deployments that guarantee resilience. And AWS Secrets Manager, that keeps your critical credentials highly secure and completely out of the code. The dramatic tension here is absolutely real. Manual, risky, on-premises setups versus a highly resilient, automated cloud environment.
Moving right along to Section 2, Architectural Foundation, the AWS Well-Architected Framework. Now, when you're migrating sensitive financial data, you absolutely cannot take leaps of faith. You need a predictable, highly secure bedrock. And the AWS Well-Architected Framework directly addresses strict financial compliance needs through its core pillars. Let's look at security first. By utilizing AWS Key Management Service, or KMS, and CloudTrail, you secure direct benefits for regulatory adherence. Specifically, CloudTrail logging creates these immutable audit trails that are absolutely vital for SOX compliance. And KMS? It ensures your data encryption meets strict GDPR standards. Moving down to reliability, employing a multi-AZ Aurora database architecture ensures high fault tolerance and incredibly rapid disaster recovery. Finally, cost optimization. By utilizing AWS savings plans, you can actually drive a 20 to 30% reduction in your total cost of ownership. It's all about building on a proven foundation.
Which brings us to Section 3, modernization with AWS tools, replacing legacy tools.
Let's transition over to the specific tools that bridge the gap between those old spreadsheets and modern cloud services. Think of this as a direct translation technique. That custom VBA business logic you've relied on for years, that gets seamlessly replaced by AWS Lambda. Lambda provides serverless execution, meaning it only runs and bills you when it's actually triggered. No wasted resources. Then, your heavy data manipulation and ETL tasks, they move to AWS Glue. That's another serverless tool designed specifically to handle large datasets way more efficiently than Excel ever could. To manage and orchestrate all these different pieces, we use AWS step functions. And for security, Amazon Macie steps in with automated detection of personally identifiable information to keep you SOX and GDPR compliant. So you aren't just moving to the cloud, you are directly translating legacy friction into cloud-native efficiency. All right, Section 4, Performance and Scalability Benchmarks, Measuring AWS Success.
Now we have to do the so what check, right? How do these cloud tools actually impact the financial bottom line and operational speed? Well, what's really interesting about this number is the target latency reduction when moving from on-premises Excel macros to optimized AWS workflows is a staggering 95%. Yeah, 95%. It is a massive target. Just imagine a financial report that previously took hours to crunch locally, probably freezing up your machine in the process, now executing in a fraction of a second. And we can actually see the real-world impact of those targets looking at the Equifax case study. Pre-migration, their on-premises suite experienced variable performance during peak loads and incredibly high costs. Post-migration, they achieved a massive 70% reduction in database operating costs. And that was while provisioning even higher capacity. Beyond just cost, Equifax saw a 300% improvement in reporting performance, which enabled significantly faster month-end closes. Or take FINRA as another amazing example from the source data. By migrating to AWS Lambda, they reduced validation times from 7 minutes down to under 1 minute. Folks, that is the true definition of operational scale.
Moving into Section 5, the 3-phase migration timeline, a de-risked roadmap. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this sounds great, but ripping out our core financial reporting sounds incredibly risky. Totally fair. But the reality is, this transformation is achieved through a heavily de-risked sequential roadmap. It starts with the assess phase, covering weeks 1 through 8. This is where you map dependencies, inventory absolutely everything, and build your business case. You're taking stock of the environment before making a single disruptive move. Next, months 1 through 4. That's the mobilize phase. This is all about laying the groundwork, establishing your AWS landing zone, and setting up secure hybrid connectivity. Finally, we have the migrate and modernize phase. This has a variable timeline depending on your scale, but it's where you execute the migration and perform the actual cutover. And to mitigate downtime risk during that cutover, tools like AWS Cloud allow for incremental replication and seamless testing long before you ever flip the switch.
And finally, Section 6, recommended next steps, starting your journey.
We want to leave you with some highly actionable takeaways, a really concrete place to start. Looking at a 5-step strategic guide, I want to specifically draw your attention to Step 1, authorizing that 8-week assessment phase. Utilizing tools like AWS Migration Evaluator is critical to scoping the reality of your current environment. Then, notice the heavy emphasis in Step 3 on allocating a 10 to 15% contingency reserve. Listen, this is a vital best practice. Do not skip it. Complex migrations of legacy macros will absolutely uncover hidden dependencies, for sure. Having that budget reserve mapped out ensures that those unforeseen challenges don't completely derail your modernization effort.
Which brings us to a final pivotal question for you to consider. Are your financial operations ready to evolve from fragile macros to a scalable, resilient cloud architecture? The blueprint is here, the tools are completely proven, and as we've seen, the performance benchmarks speak for themselves. The spreadsheet area served its purpose, it really did, but the next evolution of financial operations, it belongs in the cloud. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this gives you the focused clarity you need to begin your own cloud modernization journey.